Have you ever woken up from a dream that felt so real, so strange, or even disturbing, only to forget it minutes later? Or maybe you remember it vividly, wondering what it all meant. A flying staircase, a faceless man, an old childhood room, nonsense, on the surface. But what if every detail held a hidden message from the deepest parts of your mind? This isn't just a poetic idea. Over a century ago, one man dared to suggest that our dreams were not random or meaningless. They were coded messages, packed with emotion, conflict, and unspoken desires. That man was Sigmund Freud, and his book The Interpretation of Dreams, first published in 1899, shattered the boundaries of how we understand the human mind. What you're about to discover is not just about dreams. It's about the raw, unfiltered thoughts you hide even from yourself. Freud believed that while we sleep, our minds speak in symbols and riddles, revealing truths we're too afraid or too ashamed to face in the daylight. These truths don't just appear, they fight to surface, struggling against the forces of internal censorship and social pressure. And that battle is what creates the strange, puzzling form of dreams. In this video, we're diving deep into the interpretation of dreams, not just the popular points, but the overlooked ideas, the controversial passages, and the groundbreaking psychological tools that Freud introduced quietly, without the world realizing just how much it would change everything. Did you know that Freud originally published this work with the date 1900, even though it was released in 1899? He wanted it to stand at the dawn of a new century, symbolizing a psychological revolution. This wasn't a coincidence. Freud believed that by understanding dreams, humanity could finally begin to understand itself, not just mentally but spiritually, emotionally, and historically. Freud's theory introduced something radically new, that the unconscious mind, a part of ourselves that operates silently and invisibly, could be studied, decoded, and understood. Before Freud, the idea of an unconscious was philosophical, mystical, or poetic. After Freud, it became clinical, measurable, unavoidable. He claimed that dreams are wish fulfillments, but not always the kind you'd like to admit. Sometimes they express fears, suppressed guilt, secret envy, or unresolved trauma. He showed that what appears in dreams isn't what it seems. There is always something hidden beneath. In this video, you'll learn why Freud said that a dream has two layers: the manifest content, the part you remember, and the latent content, the hidden meaning. But here's where things get really interesting, and where most summaries miss the point. Freud didn't stumble upon these ideas out of nowhere. He tested them on himself. Many of the dreams in this book are his own. One of the most famous, known as the dream of Irma's injection, wasn't just a clinical case. It was a moment of deep personal turmoil, an attempt to heal himself, a coded confession buried in the language of dreams. He dissected it piece by piece, exposing not just the theory, but his own raw emotions, guilt, and anxiety. And that's what makes this book different from most scientific works. It's clinical, yes, but it's also painfully human. It reads like a diary, a confession, a detective novel, and a philosophical essay, all at once. Freud wasn't just explaining dreams. He was documenting how they had become the battlefield between our inner desires and outer morals. You'll also hear how Freud's ideas were first rejected. His colleagues laughed. His peers dismissed the work as speculative fantasy. He was isolated, criticized, even mocked, but he was relentless. He kept pushing the boundaries, certain that he was uncovering something too important to ignore. Now, decades later, his ideas about the unconscious have entered the way we talk about ourselves. Phrases like Freudian slip, Oedipus complex, and repressed memories trace their roots back to this book. And even as modern psychology evolves, the shadow of Freud's early theories remains powerful, controversial, impossible to ignore. So why should you watch this video until the end? Because we're not just recapping a book, we're stepping into one of the most mysterious and intimate parts of the human experience. We're pulling back the curtain on what your mind does when you're not watching. And along the way, we'll uncover facts and theories that most people never hear about. Freud's secret methods, his critics, his inner doubts, the way this book reshaped not only psychology but literature, art, and culture across the globe. And by the end, you might look at your next dream a little differently. Welcome to Narrative Society, where we explore stories that change how we see the world and ourselves. If you're curious, if you're bold, if you're willing to journey into the mind's hidden corners, make sure to subscribe, because what comes next will change how you sleep, and maybe even how you wake up. Before we talk about the deeper mechanics of dreams, we need to understand the heart of Freud's theory, the idea that every dream is, at its core, a kind of wish fulfillment. This doesn't mean that dreams always show pleasant scenes or happy endings. In fact, many dreams are confusing, frightening, or even disturbing. But for Freud, this was the whole point. The wish hidden inside the dream is often not something we consciously want to acknowledge. It's not always obvious. It's not always comfortable, but it is there, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. Freud believed that the human mind is divided into different parts. At the top is the conscious mind, what we think, feel, and know when we're awake. Beneath that lies the unconscious, a vast, silent realm where forgotten memories, childhood experiences, instincts, and forbidden desires are buried. These unconscious desires are not gone. They are active. They are alive, and they try to make their way to the surface. But the conscious mind doesn't allow this easily. Society, morals, culture, and fear all act like guards at the gate. They tell us what is acceptable and what is not. They keep our darker or more primitive desires from reaching awareness. These desires don't simply disappear. They get pushed down, repressed. But repression does not destroy them. Instead, they continue to live in the unconscious, shaping our thoughts, our actions, and most of all, our dreams. This is where Freud's idea of wish fulfillment comes in. In dreams, Freud wrote, these repressed wishes find a pathway to expression. While we sleep, the strict rules of consciousness are relaxed. The guards at the gate fall asleep too, and for a brief time, the unconscious is allowed to speak, though it does so in disguise. This disguised expression is what we call a dream. This example seems simple, but for Freud, the same principle applied to more complex and hidden wishes, especially those rooted in early childhood. And yet, they do not die. In dreams, these repressed wishes seek fulfillment once more. Freud called this the return of the repressed. A dream might not show the wish directly. In fact, it rarely does. Instead, it shows symbols, metaphors, and odd juxtapositions. A forbidden desire might appear as a journey. A longing for care might be disguised as a dream about a distant house. A feeling of guilt might emerge as a scene of being chased or trapped. The wish is always present, Freud insisted, but it hides behind masks. To uncover the wish, Freud developed the method of dreamanalysis. This involved breaking down the elements of the dream, the images, the events, the feelings, and tracing them back to the dreamer's experiences, thoughts, and associations. This wasn't always easy. The dream often resisted understanding. It twisted meanings, used symbols, and merged different ideas into one image. Freud called this process dream work. Still, the wish could be found. Take, for example, a patient who dreams of arriving late to an important event. On the surface, this might feel like a nightmare, but through analysis, Freud might find that the dreamer resents the responsibility that comes with success or fears judgment. The dream, though stressful, might actually be fulfilling a hidden wish to escape pressure, to avoid the burden of expectation. The unpleasant feeling in the dream doesn't cancel the wish, it masks it. In other cases, dreams may fulfill wishes that the dreamer would never consciously admit. A person might dream of someone else's failure. The surface feeling may be guilt or surprise, but underneath, there could be envy or rivalry. The dream lets the unconscious express what the conscious mind has rejected. Freud emphasized that wish fulfillment in dreams is not always moral, logical, or kind. It's not about what we should want. It's about what we truly feel deep inside, even if we don't like it. This was one of the most controversial parts of his theory. He didn't paint the unconscious as noble or wise. He saw it as raw and primal, full of tension and contradiction. And this, for Freud, is why dream interpretation is so powerful. It allows us to look at the parts of ourselves we often try to ignore. It forces us to confront our inner life not as we wish it to be, but as it really is. Freud was careful to say that not all dreams are easy to interpret. The wish can be deeply buried, especially in dreams that seem chaotic or nonsensical, but he believed that with time, reflection, and proper technique, the hidden desire can be found. He also noted that wish fulfillment becomes more complex as we grow older. In children, dreams often show the wish directly. A child who wants a toy might dream of holding it. A child who misses a parent might dream of being hugged. There is little disguise, but in adults, the dream work becomes more elaborate. The wish must pass through layers of censorship and resistance. What emerges may be strange or surreal, but the wish is there at the center. Freud also acknowledged that not all dreams feel like wish fulfillment. Some are nightmares. Some bring pain or sadness, but even in these, he believed the wish is present. Perhaps the dream allows a person to feel something they avoid in waking life. Perhaps it gives form to a fear or a longing that is easier to face in a dream than in reality. In one case, Freud described a woman who dreamed of her child dying. At first, this seemed too disturbing to be a wish, but through analysis, it became clear that the woman felt overwhelmed and exhausted. The dream was not a literal desire, it was a cry for rest, a wish for freedom, not from love, but from unbearable pressure. Dreams, then, are not always what they seem. They don't always give us what we want in obvious ways, but for Freud, they always reveal what we need to see if we are willing to look. When we look at a dream, what we usually see is its surface, the story, the images, the events that seem to unfold while we sleep. Freud called this the manifest content of the dream. It's the version we remember upon waking. It might include walking through a forest, talking to a stranger, falling from a height, or missing a train. The manifest content is what the dream appears to be about. But for Freud, this surface was only a mask. Beneath the manifest content lies the latent content, the real hidden meaning of the dream. This is where the repressed wishes, unresolved conflicts, and deep desires exist. These are not shown directly. Instead, they are translated, disguised, and transformed. The dream we remember is only the final product of that transformation. Freud believed that if the latent content were shown directly, it would be too disturbing or unacceptable to the conscious mind. It would wake us up. It would cause anxiety. To avoid this, the unconscious reshapes the wish into something less threatening, less obvious. The dream becomes a kind of code. The true meaning is there, but it's buried. Take a simple example. A person dreams of climbing a mountain. On the surface, it may seem like an adventure or challenge, but the latent content might involve a struggle for success, a hidden competition, or even sexual symbolism. The act of climbing becomes a symbol. The real wish, often unconscious, remains hidden under the image. This process of transformation is not random. Freud described several key mechanisms by which the unconscious reshapes the latent content into the manifest content. He called this entire process the dream work. One of the first mechanisms is condensation. In this process, multiple ideas, memories, or emotions are combined into a single image or event in the dream. A character in a dream might seem familiar, but not quite right. That's because they are often a blend of several real people. A single object might carry several meanings. Condensation compresses complexity into simplicity. One symbol stands in for many things. For example, someone may dream of a house with two different doors. The house could represent the self. One door may relate to the past, the other to the future. But in the dream, the two ideas are merged into one picture. That's condensation, many meanings packed into a single dream element. The second mechanism is displacement. This is the shifting of emotional significance from an important or threatening idea to something safer or unrelated. In a dream, what seems trivial might carry great emotional weight, while what seems important might actually be a disguise. If someone feels anger toward a parent, that feeling might be redirected in the dream onto a stranger. The true source of the feeling is displaced. This protects the dreamer from waking distress. Displacement ensures that the dream does not show the actual source of the desire or conflict too directly. A third mechanism is symbolization. This is where repressed thoughts are expressed through symbols. Freud believed that the unconscious used a kind of symbolic language. Certain images in dreams, like towers, staircases, water, or animals, often represent deeper psychological ideas, including those tied to childhood or sexuality. These symbols are not fixed in meaning, but Freud found common patterns. For instance, flying might represent a desire for freedom. Being in a narrow space might suggest anxiety about confinement. These symbols allow the dream to express the latent content in a disguised but meaningful way. The fourth mechanism Freud identified is called secondary revision. This happens as we begin to wake up and the mind tries to make sense of the dream. The bizarre or illogical parts of the dream are reorganized. The story is cleaned up, gaps are filled, contradictions are smoothed over. Secondary revision makes the dream easier to remember and talk about, but harder to interpret. The real structure has already been altered by condensation, displacement, and symbolization. Now it is reshaped once more into something that feels logical, even though the pieces may have come from completely different thoughts. These mechanisms work together. They take the raw material of the latent content, the repressed wishes and unresolved conflicts, and turn it into something that can slip past the defenses of the conscious mind. Freud compared this to a kind of internal censorship. The conscious mind, or more precisely the ego, acts like a guard. It tries to keep disturbing or unacceptable thoughts from becoming conscious. But in dreams, when we sleep, this censorship weakens. Still, it doesn't vanish completely. Instead, it cooperates with the dream work. It allows the repressed thoughts to appear, but only in disguise. This compromise is what makes dreams so strange. The logic is unfamiliar. Time and space are flexible. Characters change shape. Objects shift meaning. Emotions rise and fall without reason. But for Freud, this strangeness is not a flaw. It's the sign that dream work is taking place. Dreams are built under pressure. On one side, the unconscious pushes upward with its hidden wishes. On the other, the conscious mind pushes back, filtering and reshaping. What we get is the result of that conflict, a dream filled with symbols, surprises, and meaning. To analyze a dream, Freud believed we must move backward. Start with the manifest content, the remembered dream, and trace it back to the latent thoughts. This is not about guessing what a symbol means. It's about asking the dreamer for their associations. What does the image remind them of? What feelings come to mind? What memories are stirred? Through this process, the layers begin to peel away. The disguise falls apart. The original wish begins to take form. Dream analysis is not a science of direct translation. There is no dictionary for dreams. The same symbol can mean different things to different people. What matters is the individual's inner life, their past, their feelings, their desires. Freud viewed dreams as the royal road to the unconscious, not because they are simple, but because they are full of meaning. The manifest content is like a painting on a wall, beautiful, strange, confusing, but behind it, hidden beneath the surface, lies another picture, one made of memory, emotion, and desire. Each dream is a negotiation, a compromise, a message written in code. The dreamer is both author and reader, though not always aware of either role. The dream speaks, but in a language shaped by fear, longing, and the need to remain asleep. The goal of analysis is not to judge the dream, but to understand it, to follow the signs, to listen to what the unconscious is trying to say. Through condensation, displacement, symbolization, and revision, the mind finds a way to speak its truth, even if only in shadows. This censorship doesn't block the dream entirely. It allows the wish to appear, but only in a form that has been changed, distorted, softened. A threatening thought might become a harmless image. An unacceptable desire may appear as something unrelated, even absurd. The original message is still there, but it's wrapped in symbols and confusion. The person may dream of losing a key. On the surface, this may seem minor, but in the background, it might reflect a fear of losing control, a sense of guilt, or even a sexual wish. The dream's censorship has changed the meaning into something the conscious mind can accept. The real feeling remains protected beneath the image. This distortion is not random. It follows the same rules as the dream work mechanisms: condensation, displacement, symbolization, and secondary revision. But at the heart of it lies the censor. It filters the dream, edits it, and ensures that the forbidden content is not too clear. If the dream becomes too close to the truth, it risks waking the dreamer. The mind resists this. The result is a puzzle. The real wish is present, but altered. Even anxiety dreams, which seem disturbing, are still subject to this censorship. The anxiety often comes from the censorship itself, struggling to contain the wish. The dream becomes a battlefield between desire and defense. The stronger the censorship, the more distorted the dream becomes. Freud suggested that the harshest censorship occurs with wishes that touch early childhood experiences. These are the oldest desires, and also the most repressed. Among these is one of Freud's most controversial ideas, the Oedipus complex. The Oedipus complex refers to a child's early emotional attachment to the parent of the opposite sex, and the unconscious rivalry with the parent of the same sex. In a young boy, this means an unconscious desire for the mother and jealousy, or fear toward the father. In a young girl, Freud believed a similar process took place, though the details were different. This complex, named after the Greek myth of Oedipus, who unknowingly killed his father and married his mother, was seen by Freud as a central part of human development. He believed that traces of this early conflict remain in the unconscious throughout life, and these traces, though deeply buried, often surface in dreams. In dreams, the forbidden wish connected to the Oedipus complex is almost never shown directly. It would trigger too much anxiety, so the dream disguises it. A man might dream of an angry figure chasing him, which could symbolize the father. A woman might dream of protecting a child, which could reflect a hidden desire for parental closeness or control. These images are not literal. They are symbols shaped by the dream work and filtered by censorship. Family relationships, even in adulthood, carry emotional weight. The early bonds and conflicts with parents form the foundation of how we relate to others. In Freud's view, these early attachments influence not only behavior, but also the content of dreams. A person might dream of helping a stranger, but the stranger carries features of a sibling. A punishment from a teacher in the dream may reflect guilt toward a parental figure. These transformations are the result of repression, censorship, and the dream work working together. The Oedipus complex is not just about family, it is about the structure of the unconscious. It reveals how desires are formed, how they are shaped by relationships, and how they become hidden. Freud saw it as a key to understanding not just dreams, but the self. The dream is where the buried conflicts find expression, masked, symbolic, distorted, but still present. Censorship is strongest when the desire is closest to these primal issues. A repressed memory may be turned into a metaphor. A guilty wish might become an absurd joke in the dream. A forbidden feeling might appear as a strange landscape or unfamiliar face. The disguise protects the dreamer from recognizing the real content. But for Freud, the trained analyst could follow the trail. Through associations, the dream's pieces could be traced back to their roots. Freud described dreams as a compromise. The wish wants to be fulfilled. The censor wants to keep it hidden. The result is a dream that satisfies the wish in disguise. The stronger the repression, the more complex the disguise. This makes the dream appear chaotic or meaningless. But Freud believed that beneath the surface, every dream has meaning. A dream about a locked room might point to a hidden fear. A journey through a dark tunnel may reflect the struggle with personal truth. The dream doesn't say it directly, it hints, it points, it avoids the obvious. This is censorship at work, always altering, always reshaping, yet the wish is still fulfilled. Not in a literal way, but symbolically. Freud called dreams the disguised fulfillment of repressed wishes. The disguise is there for a reason, to protect the conscious mind, but the fulfillment still happens, if only in a hidden form. Children's dreams are often less censored. Their wishes are not yet fully repressed. A child might dream openly of having a toy, becoming a hero, or replacing a parent. In adults, these dreams become more subtle. The wishes remain, but the censorship grows stronger. The dream becomes more layered, more indirect. Freud saw this process as a window into the unconscious, not because the dream tells us everything, but because it shows us the outlines of hidden desires. The censor reshapes the content, but it cannot remove it entirely. The original thoughts are still there, waiting to be uncovered. Even nightmares, though painful, may represent wish fulfillment distorted by censorship. The dream may go wrong on purpose. The wish may be punished. The desire may be twisted into fear. But in every case, Freud believed there is a wish at the core. It is simply hidden, reshaped, and masked to avoid awakening the mind's defenses. The Oedipus complex makes this even more powerful. It links the dreamer's private emotions with universal themes. Love, rivalry, guilt, identity, these are not just personal, they are shared by all. The dream becomes a stage where these deep forces act out their hidden stories. To understand a dream, we must look past the surface. The censorship hides, but does not destroy. The Oedipus complex disturbs, but also reveals. The dream speaks in symbols, masks, and riddles, but it always speaks. Freud's task was to listen, and to teach others how to listen too. A dream can seem mysterious, even meaningless at times. But within its strange scenes and scattered images, Freud believed there are symbols. These symbols, though not always obvious, represent something deeper. They are not random, they are clues. They point to repressed desires, hidden fears, and unmet wishes from the unconscious mind. Some symbols appear often in dreams. Freud called them typical dreams. Falling is one. Many people dream of losing balance, tumbling through the air with no control. Freud linked this to anxiety. But more than that, he saw falling as a symbol of a loss of self-control, often with sexual meaning. It may represent the fear of giving in to desire or guilt about temptation. The unconscious wish tries to emerge, and the dream turns it into motion, into falling. Another common image is flying. The dreamer lifts off the ground, floating or soaring. For Freud, flying dreams often reflect the desire for freedom, for escape from constraints. They might also relate to childhood memories, times when one felt light, joyful, unrestricted, but the flight can also carry sexual meaning, representing the release of tension or a longing for power. Being chased is another frequent symbol. Someone or something pursues the dreamer. The figure may be unknown, or perhaps masked. The dreamer runs, hides, or confronts the pursuer. Freud interpreted this as an expression of inner conflict. Often the chaser symbolizes a part of the dreamer's own unconscious, a forbidden thought, a guilty desire, a suppressed emotion, trying to break through. Nakedness in dreams is also typical. The dreamer might appear without clothes in public, feeling exposed or ashamed. Freud saw this as a return to vulnerability. It might relate to childhood experiences or to the fear of being judged. Yet at the core, it might also point to a wish to be seen, to be accepted without barriers. Teeth falling out is another symbolic dream. Freud believed this could relate to anxiety about power, aging, or loss. In some interpretations, it may even reflect sexual repression, especially in early stages of life. The symbol is dramatic, but its roots go deep into fears of helplessness and change. Water is another powerful symbol. Lakes, oceans, rivers, even floods can appear in dreams. Freud saw water as a symbol of the unconscious itself. It reflects the hidden depths of the mind. Swimming might symbolize navigating emotional states. Drowning could represent being overwhelmed by repressed thoughts. Water can soothe or threaten, depending on the emotions behind it. Doors, windows, tunnels, these are not just objects in dreams. Freud connected them with ideas of entry, transition, and often with sexuality. A tunnel might represent birth, or a return to the womb. A locked door might symbolize a repressed wish or a hidden memory. A window might mean curiosity or longing. Animals in dreams carry meanings too. A snake might represent fear, or in Freud's view, may also symbolize male sexuality. A dog might show loyalty or aggression, depending on the context. Animals bypass language and speak directly to instinct. In dreams, they can stand for raw emotions. Symbols in dreams are rarely universal. Their meaning depends on the dreamer's own associations. Freud would often ask patients to say what came to mind when they saw a symbol. That process, called free association, helped uncover the true meaning. A ladder might mean ambition to one person, but fear of falling to another. A house might represent the self, with each room reflecting a part of the mind. Dreams don't only reflect deep childhood desires, they are also shaped by daily life. Freud called this the day residue. He noticed that many dreams connect to events from the previous day. A conversation, an object, a worry, even something small can appear in a dream. A person might dream of being late to school after seeing a clock the day before, or they might dream of a friend they had only briefly thought about. The conscious mind moves on quickly, but the unconscious stores everything. These fragments enter the dream, but they are rarely presented as they are. They are blended with older thoughts, with deeper feelings. A familiar face might carry a different voice. A real street may be placed in an imagined city. Freud saw this blending as a key feature of the dream work. The recent memory is just the trigger. It opens the gate to deeper content. The dreamer may not remember the link, but it exists. A word spoken in passing might lead to a dream filled with emotion. A childhood smell might resurface after seeing something similar during the day. These connections are hidden, but they are there. Freud believed dreams help protect sleep. The mind takes the pressures of daily life, worries, duties, unfinished thoughts, and transforms them. Sometimes the dream releases the pressure, other times it reflects the tension. The dream works like a filter, turning outer noise into inner images. Not every dream symbol leads to a hidden desire. Some are shaped by simple need. A person who is thirsty may dream of water. Someone cold may dream of fire. But even these can combine with deeper content. A dream of drinking water may also reflect emotional thirst or longing for comfort. The influence of daily life often explains the surface of the dream, the manifest content, but behind that surface, Freud saw the latent content, the hidden meaning. The recent memory acts like a mask. It hides the older wish. The two combine, creating the strange and layered story of the dream. A man dreams of losing his wallet. The day before, he misplaced his keys. But the dream is not just about the keys. Freud would ask, what does the wallet mean? What does losing it symbolize? Perhaps it reflects fear of losing identity, or guilt over spending. Perhaps the dream reaches back to childhood fears about security. The key event from the day opens the door to something older. This blending of the new and the old is what gives dreams their power. They seem fresh, but they carry history. They appear random, but they are carefully constructed. The recent day's events are not ignored. They are used, merged with repressed desires, shaped by censorship and expressed through symbols. Freud believed that the most innocent dreams often contain the most meaning. A short scene, a strange detail, a repeated phrase, all of these can point to something the mind is hiding. The dream does not lie, but it speaks in a language we must learn to decode. In this language, everything matters. The setting, the colors, the people, the feelings, even the things left out, may be important. Freud saw dreams as a kind of script written by the unconscious, using the material of the day shaped by the life of the past. Understanding that script takes time. It takes honesty and reflection. The symbols must be traced. The day's residue must be explored. The associations must be followed without fear. Only then does the dream begin to speak its true message, not as nonsense, but as a deeply personal, emotional expression of the self. Freud's theory of dreams did not enter the world without resistance. It stirred discussion, fascination, and strong opposition. Critics came forward almost immediately. Many questioned his methods. Others challenged his conclusions. One of the most persistent criticisms was that Freud placed too much emphasis on sexuality. His belief that many dreams stem from repressed sexual desires was seen by some as narrow, even obsessive. Some argued that not every dream has to do with desire. They felt that dreams could reflect worries, memories, hopes, and fears that are not necessarily sexual. They also believed that interpreting all symbols through this lens overlooked the complexity of human emotion. To many, the sexual meanings Freud found in objects and symbols seemed exaggerated. A hat might be just a hat, not a symbol of masculinity. A staircase might just be part of the setting, not an image of intercourse. Freud anticipated this criticism. He acknowledged that his focus on sexuality would be controversial, but he insisted it was not, because he wanted it to be that way. He followed what patients revealed in analysis. Over and over, the associations led back to childhood desires, fears, and guilt. He believed that sexual development was central to the formation of the psyche. For him, these early conflicts shaped the unconscious, and therefore the dream. Still, some felt Freud misunderstood the mind. They said he reduced human experience to base instincts. They claimed he ignored the role of culture, language, and choice. Others criticized his reliance on subjective reports. They asked, how can dreams be scientifically studied if their meaning is discovered through personal interpretation? His methods, especially free association, were viewed as unscientific by some psychologists. Without measurement, without control groups, how can a theory be tested or proven? Critics said Freud's theories could not be falsified. There was no way to disprove them. If a patient denied a sexual meaning, Freud might say that was repression. If they agreed, it confirmed the theory. To some, this made the method circular. Misunderstandings of Freud's work also led to misreadings. People thought he believed every dream had only one hidden sexual wish, but Freud never claimed that. He saw dreams as layered. A single image could have several meanings. A dream might be shaped by childhood experiences, current emotions, and bodily sensations, all at once. He warned against interpreting symbols too rigidly. He never said that a cigar always means something else. Sometimes, a cigar is just a cigar. Another common misreading is that Freud viewed the unconscious as purely dark and negative. In fact, he saw it as dynamic. The unconscious was not only a storehouse of repressed desires, but also a creative force. It shaped thoughts, language, humor, and dreams. It was full of contradictions, but it helped form the individual's personality and behavior. Freud's approach to dreams was also misunderstood as being purely individualistic. While it's true that he focused on personal associations, he also saw patterns. He noticed recurring themes and typical dreams shared by many people. These were not explained by personal history alone. He recognized that culture, myths, and shared language influenced dream symbols too. Despite the criticisms, Freud's influence spread far. The interpretation of dreams became one of the foundational texts of psychoanalysis. It changed how people thought about the mind. Before Freud, dreams were often dismissed as nonsense. After him, they were seen as meaningful expressions of the self. His theory of the unconscious reshaped psychology. It gave a new way to understand human behavior, not just through what is seen or said, but through what is hidden. Freud opened the door to exploring inner life, mental conflict, and repression. He showed that mental life is not always rational, that people are not fully aware of what drives them, that the mind can conceal, distort, and disguise truths. These ideas went beyond psychoanalysis. They entered literature, art, film, and philosophy. Writers began exploring the subconscious motives of characters. Artists turned to dream imagery and inner worlds. Filmmakers portrayed the mind as a place of symbols and shadows. Philosophers questioned the idea of a unified, stable self. They saw identity as shaped by forces beneath awareness. In therapy, Freud's work created a new path. Talking therapy became more than advice. It became a space to explore memory, emotion, and dreams. Even today, many forms of therapy draw on Freud's idea that healing comes from understanding unconscious processes. His influence is seen in depth psychology, attachment theory, and trauma studies. Modern neuroscience has moved in different directions. Brain imaging, sleep studies, and cognitive science focus on structures and processes. But even in these fields, Freud's questions remain. Why do we dream? Why do dreams feel so emotional? How do past experiences shape current thoughts? Freud did not have all the answers, but he asked the questions that still guide research. Freud's legacy also lives in the language we use. Words like repression, projection, ego, slip, and Freudian have entered everyday speech. People speak of working through problems, defense mechanisms, and inner conflict. These ideas came from Freud's world. The book itself, The Interpretation of Dreams, continues to be read. It is not easy reading. It blends case studies, philosophy, mythology, and clinical insights, but it remains powerful. In it, Freud presents a vision of the mind that is deep, troubled, symbolic, and meaningful. For some, Freud's view of the mind is outdated, but for others, it still offers insight. His method invites people to ask, what lies beneath this thought? Why does this dream stay with me? What does this symbol mean to me? Not to a textbook, but to my inner life. Even those who disagree with Freud often define their position in response to him. His presence is felt, whether embraced or resisted. He changed the way we think about thinking. He offered a map of the mind, not perfect, but bold. He gave us a new way to listen to silence, to symptoms, to slips of the tongue, and to dreams. Many theories have come since then. Many methods have challenged his ideas. But Freud's work opened a door that remains open. The dream, once seen as random, is now seen as a message. It may not speak clearly. It may twist, hide, or disguise, but it speaks. In this way, Freud's theory, even with all its criticisms, continues to provoke thought. It invites us not just to sleep, but to listen, not just to forget, but to remember, not just to dream, but to understand. Dreams have always held a strange power over us. Through Freud's lens, we see them not as meaningless fragments, but as reflections of our deepest desires, fears, and conflicts. We explored how dreams serve as wish fulfillments, how their surface meaning hides deeper truths, and how our minds shape and censor them to protect our waking selves. We saw how daily life seeps into our dreams, and how symbols carry messages from our unconscious. We discussed the controversies, the influence of childhood, and the lasting impact of Freud's work on psychology and beyond. Even today, in an age of science and technology, dreams remain a mystery. They invite us inward to listen, reflect, and question. What are your dreams trying to tell you? What part of your hidden self is speaking when you sleep? If you found this video thought-provoking, please like it, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future explorations into the mind and beyond. Tonight, keep a notebook by your bed. When you wake up from a dream, even if it's just a feeling or an image, write it down. Then try to interpret it using what you learned today. Is there a hidden wish? A disguised thought? Share your dream, if you feel comfortable, and your interpretation in the comments. Let's decode the language of dreams together. Thank you for watching.